So Ben, you just got your first Emmy nomination for your work on Ozark. Congratulations on that. I want to just start off by asking, when you first got offered this job, what about it initially attracted you to lending your talents as a cinematographer to it?
Well, I've always been interested in things that happen more in a rural setting, and most of the movies that I've shot to this point were take place in an urban setting. So this was an opportunity. I was raised in the country, so this is an opportunity to sort of explore the darkness of my childhood, as it were, and I'm always trying to sort of find a way to bring back, evoke memories in the audience. I sort of think the strongest photography and storytelling is when you're evoking something from somebody's past. So I think a lot of what I was doing on this was sort of trying to bring back memories of what it felt like to be a kid looking out of a window and wondering if there was somebody out there watching, from in the darkness of the trees. And that's something that I really tried to explore in this. And I think, the material was just so strong. The scripts were so good from the beginning. There was no doubt that I wanted to be a part of this. And I knew Jason from a movie. Jason Bateman and I had done a movie together years before, and had a blast together. And I just sort of knew that he would be the guy to sort of guide this thing in a really interesting and dark direction.
When you say evoking memories, I wonder if you could tell us a bit how you do that through framing, through lighting. How is it that you're able to evoke memories?
Well, I think so. Evoking memories comes in multi. That's the right. What's the right way to say this? Evoking memories comes in like many ways. Like I'm using every element, and I think the way that I start by doing that is using the very modern tools that we have and the very sort of sharp modern tools that we have, and distressing them to the point where they're almost falling apart. So I do that by using the bottom end of the sensor. So I'm really underexposing the image quite a lot and sort of mining the shadows for detail rather than exposing it at the optimal point. The sensors have can get so much information. I almost feel like it's too much information. So I start by underexposing the image by at least a stop or a couple stops. And then I'm using a LUT that sort of is something that was developed over the course of the first season. Something we kind of played with and tooled around, and, a little more cyan, okay, desaturate a little more, a little less contrast, and, sort of midway or by the end of the season sort of had something that I felt like was a memory of my childhood, or of, really what it is it's like mimicking an old Fuji film stock, something that's when I started taking pictures when I was a kid, that's something that was around and I was playing around with. And I used a lot of expired film stock. I think even back when there was film, I was looking for this sort of most distressed version of it. How can I kind of pare this down and take all the sharpness away, take away all of the sort of pop and glitz and, glamour of photography, and just really pare it down to something super simple. And the other way I do that in terms of evoking memories is lens choice, like really trying to find something that I can shoot wide open, that has some character to it. You still want it to be sharp, and you don't want the actors to be out of focus, but really looking for something that has like a real character to it, and a real character of its own, and something that's a little bit out of your control. I think when I'm doing my best work, it's like we're kind of right on the edge of me losing control of what's happening in front of the camera. But that sort of fine line, I think, lends itself in a really interesting way to Ozark.
You mentioned the location being a big part of why you wanted to shoot this, and one of the things this show does very well is evoke a very specific place. And can you talk a bit about putting the audience in the Ozarks, in the cold, in the wild, in the wilderness?
Yeah, I mean, I think the locations are one of the most exciting things about the show, and most people would probably be surprised to learn that we shoot it in Atlanta. So there's actually quite a bit of work that goes into it from a location scouting perspective, from a production design perspective. lot of work goes into sort of creating an environment. A lot of that is lighting. I mean, I'm doing a lot of controlled lighting on the exterior, and rather than turning on a light and banging the actors with a light, I'm actually like reducing light and using a lot of negative fill, to the point where some crew members sort of looked at me last season and said, like, is this normal? And I thought, okay, I'm doing something right. If I'm not doing what's normal, then I'm doing something right. The locations, that we use are, we're always kind of looking for something that would evoke that sort of Ozark feel, and and sort of tell that narrative. And I think we're all, we're looking for something. I think from the beginning, Jason and I were really looking for something that felt dangerous, that had an edge to it, that really like evoked something for the audience that was a little bit of terror. I think we're constantly trying to draw that out of the locations and out of them. And we're out on the water and on the edge of the water and in the woods, and these are all like really challenging locations to be in, but sort of embracing that. I find like when you can't fight against Mother Nature. Mother Nature will always win. So really embracing, the limitations of embracing the limitations of a location really are to your benefit. I mean, you are not out on the middle of the lake. You are not going to be able to control the lighting to the way that you would want to do. So you sort of embrace all of the flaws of what it's giving you, whatever it's giving you, just to try to enhance that and find a way to have fun with that. And I think that's a lot of what, Jason and I really try to do on the show is have fun. And if we're having fun, with the camera, if we're moving the camera in an interesting way and revealing information in a fun and interesting and sometimes terrifying way, then I think it's going to be fun, and it's going to be both fun and terrifying for the audience.
It's amazing what you can sell through movie magic. I didn't know you were shooting this in Atlanta. I should have looked out for that Georgia peach at the end credits. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about your Emmy submission. You are nominated for the 10th episode of the season, The Toll, which was directed by Jason Bateman. It's also his nominated episode as a director. What about that episode? I guess something about it must have stood out for him as well, for him to have submitted it for directing. But what for you stood out about it and made you want to choose it as your episode submission?
Well, I think, the season has a progression to it, and we're sort of building towards something. The season starts in a new environment. And, the pilot was shot by an amazing cinematographer, Pepe. And he did a fantastic job sort of setting up the world, but most of that took place in Chicago, and it sort of transitioned to the Ozarks. And then I feel like we sort of were finding our footing in this new world of the Ozark and what the show is. And I think really the truth is that on episode 10, I got an opportunity to work with Jason directing. And I feel like, him and I just have a very similar sense of aesthetic and just a shared sort of love of film language. And I think we had a lot of fun. And I think that sort of translates. And I think he's just obsessed with the dark and the cold as I am. And so I think we just sort of, that's where we really hit our stride. And it's a strange thing to shoot a television series with multiple cinematographers and multiple directors and create a sort of linear narrative feel. And I think we were successful at doing that. But I feel like, with Jason directing and me behind the camera, I think we really kind of hit our stride and at the end of the season. And also those are just, to me, the reason that episode really sings is that it's really, at its core, the whole show hinges on the Bird family relationship. And at its essence, it's a story of, trust and love and what does it mean to be a family and how do you take care of your family and those sort of bonds. And that episode that's really what it's about. And it's, it's the toll, it's the price that we pay for loving people. And I think that episode really sort of sings to what the whole season was about, and them, coming back to get, feeling like they're never going to see each other and then reuniting. It was a powerful episode.
This is very different from what you've shot before. I mean, just looking at some of your credits, you've done TV work like Mozart in the Jungle, You've done movies like Crown Heights. Can you talk about, as a cinematographer, coming onto a project and finding the appropriate visual look? I mean, how do you adapt what you're doing to specific material and find what the material needs?
Well, I think that's I think that's why I have the best job in the world, because I just get to come in and each story is its own story and each story is unique. And I'm never looking to sort of impose my will or a signature look onto a show. I really think each story deserves its own style and its own, its own attention and its own love. You really have to like give a lot of yourself into it to try to find what that story is. And I think we really we wanted something that was hostile, like an environment that was unfriendly, that's constantly unkind. I mean, if you look at the arc of the season, it's just Jason and the family just getting like pummeled from one side to the other. I mean, it's like just getting beat up by a bear in the woods. It's relentless. And I think that you should always just try to like tell the story with the camera and do your very best at creating a vibe. And I do that a lot through like looking at still photography references, looking at the locations, looking at the actors. I mean, I think also one of the big things that I'm influenced by and I really try to stay present for is to watch the rehearsals and watch the blocking and see what the actors are doing and let that sort of inform a lot of your decisions. I don't think that it ever serves the story to sort of impose a look that doesn't mesh with the performances. And I think, really like I'm inspired by the way that I'm inspired by the writing and I'm inspired by the performances on set. And that's sort of what gets me going. I mean, you come in with ideas and you have to have a plan. You have to sort of know where you're going to put your lights, hopefully. And then you have to be willing to sort of throw that all away and see what's happening in front of the camera. And I think if you stay open and you sort of keep a sort of childlike perspective on it, and you're willing to see something new, Laura Linney and Jason Bateman are fantastic. I mean, we have Peter Mullen, we have, Jennifer Garner. I mean, Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica Gardner. That's right.
No, it's Julia Garner. She's one
Julia
of my
Garner. Yeah.
you cut that out if she ever sees it. Julia Garner. I mean, the actors in the show are fantastic, and they're just, I mean, constantly just killing it. And I feel like if I just stay present and I pay attention to what they're doing, and that informs where I put the camera, rather than me putting the camera in like a cool place that's a cool shot. I'm finding the place relative to the actor where that camera should be. Where does the audience want to be sitting for this scene? Do you want to put them in the corner and just be very subjective for the whole time, or do you want to be engaged and be kind of right in there in the scene? And each scene is its own little story. And I think if you're really paying attention to what the actors are doing, then it gets amazing.
Now you are returning for season 2. Can you give us? I mean, we've seen some footage of it in the form of a trailer, but I'm curious if you could tell us just a little bit about going into season 2 and what new things you guys are trying out, or how you're going to build upon the success of season 1.
For me, going into season 2 is really an opportunity for exploration of something that we started in season 1. And like I said, I think, in season 1, we sort of, reached a peak towards the end of the season, at least visually. I think it really peaked. And performance-wise, I feel like all the actors sort of really knew where they were, and it was really solid. And then in season 2, it's an opportunity to explore that even further. And I would say, like, along with that, the thing that really gets explored more in season 2 is the family relationships, the family dynamics, the relationship between Julia Garner's character Ruth and Jason Bateman's character is really explored. The relationship between Wendy and Marty is further explored. So I feel like along with those explorations, I get to kind of mine deeper. And the truth is, it's nice going into season 2 because it's an opportunity to get darker and just kind of go deeper into something that I started doing last season, and really just feel I just really felt confident, that everyone really was on board with something really dark and really moody, and really something that has a vibe to it and has a unique vibe to it that's going to stand out, and just sort of explore that further, and dig deeper.
The Emmy recognition for this show, what did that mean for you to get a nomination for a show that you've obviously put a lot of effort and hard work into? What did that mean for you?
I mean, it's humbling because you just sort of work. We all just work in a. There's nothing glamorous really about what we do, and it's a lot of hard work, a lot of long hours, and I feel really like the Emmy nomination is it's for the whole team. Like it's for everyone that woke up at 4 a.m. to go to work, and put on a heavy jacket, and rode on a boat out into the middle of the lake at 5 o'clock in the morning, and put up gear, hung lights. It's a lot of people's really hard work, and I feel lucky to be a part of that. And it's really, it's kind of a cliche in television, and that it really, the crew becomes your family. We spend more time together than I do with anyone else, with my family, with they're spending their holidays with me. We're hanging out, and I feel really lucky on the show to have made some dear friends, and the Emmy is really like kind of a recognition of that we've sort of coalesced to a point where a show like this, that's not as big of a budget show as some of the other shows that were nominated in this category. We don't have the resources a lot of the time that some of those bigger shows that we're up against, the Westworlds and the Crown, and those are really huge shows, and we're not tiny, but we're the baby brother, and I feel like it's really a testament to like so many people's hard work and long hours, and just also their love for the show. It's amazing to see our team show up and just love the show and care so much about what's happening in front of the camera every single day, from the art department to the camera operators to our the grip department and the lighting guys. Everyone, they put a lot of love into it, and I think the Emmy really stands for that.
Well, Ben, thank you so much, and congratulations on your work and on your Emmy nomination. I look forward to season 2.
Thank you so much. Thanks.